As you're filing in, feel free to put in the chat where you're from, where you're zooming in from. Feel free while you're waiting, make yourselves comfortable.
All right. Well, it's lovely to see people from all over the world joining us, and more introduction messages are still popping in the chat, but I think we can get started. So I'll pass it to you, Vanessa, to kick us off. Oh, you're muted, Vanessa.
Thank you for reminding me. Thank you so much, Greta. It is good to see all of you. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Vanessa Fox. I am an organizing intern with World Beyond War from January 2024 to this January. I'm pursuing my master's degree in the art of social change at Starr King School for the Ministry, and I'm specializing my study in war and genocide abolition. And the person who is speaking first is Greta Zarro. She is World Beyond War's organizing director and the best mentor I ever could have asked for. She manages World Beyond War's chapters and affiliates around the world and has a background in issue-based community organizing. Before we get started, a few Zoom logistics. Today's event will run for about 1 hour. We might finish a little bit early. We are recording today's event and will send out an email after the event with the link to the recording. Please use the chat throughout the event to post comments and questions. And if you haven't yet, feel free to please introduce yourself in the chat and say where you're tuning in from. Captions are enabled for today's event. Please click the CC live transcript button to enable Zoom captions if you would like. If you don't see that button, you may have to click the 3 dots in the bottom right corner of your Zoom screen to find the captions setting. A reminder that the captions are done by robots, so please excuse any errors with the live transcription. So the agenda for today is we will introduce you to World Beyond War and our mission and share a brief video about what a chapter is and does. Then we will hear from chapter coordinators from around the world. After that, we will have a brief Q&A to answer your questions about starting a World Beyond War chapter. We hope you will enjoy this info session today and be inspired to start a chapter in your area. So thank you so much for joining us. So what is World Beyond War? World Beyond War is a global nonviolent movement to end war and the preparations for war, making us very unique. And we want to establish a just and sustainable peace. We are a nonprofit organization with 43 chapters currently in 31 countries around the world and 106 affiliates. Tens of thousands of people in 202 countries have signed onto our Declaration of Peace. Greta is putting the link to the Declaration of Peace in the chat for your convenience. Our theory of change is we use peace education, nonviolent activism, and media work to advance the cause of ending all war and establishing a lasting peace. We envision a chapter in every country, but to do that, we need you. Greta, would you please put in the chat the link to the chapter coordinator page? Thank you so much. Now, before we get into the presentations from our wonderful chapter coordinators, we'll watch a short video summarizing World Beyond War's mission and what a chapter is.
In this brief presentation, we'll talk about World Beyond War's mission, theory of change, and what a chapter does. World Beyond War's mission is to abolish the institution of war. We oppose all forms of war, weapons, and violence. We operate in a decentralized organizing model where volunteers around the world organize events and campaigns in their communities, all with an eye towards the larger mission of war abolition. People in over 200 countries worldwide have signed World Beyond War's Declaration of Peace. We have over 40 chapters in more than 30 countries, as well as over 100 affiliate organizations. A chapter can be thought of as a branch of World Beyond War that takes on the name, brand, and mission of World Beyond War and works closely with the staff. An affiliate is its own independent organization that partners and collaborates with World Beyond War. We also have over 1,000 organizations that have signed World Beyond War's Declaration of Peace and are listed on a map on our website. World Beyond War is a grassroots network, and we are funded in large part by small dollar donors who give as little as $5 a month to sustain our work. The Declaration of Peace is a good entry point to joining the global World Beyond War network, and chapters are encouraged to collect signatures for the Declaration of Peace to get people involved. Our theory of change involves education, nonviolent action, and media work. Our education work debunks the myths of war and lays out the proven nonviolent alternatives to war. It includes our books, our study guide, our online courses, webinars, fact sheets, and so much more. Our nonviolent action work takes many forms around the globe depending on the local context of each chapter. It could involve divesting a city from weapons, shutting down a military base, rallies, vigils, weapons blockades, and so much more. In our media work, we strive to tell a new narrative, to create our own media, such as through our monthly World Beyond War podcast or through our Billboards project. We also work to get our voice into the mainstream media through op-eds, letters to the editor, radio and TV interviews, and much more. And chapters can work on any or all of these pillars, depending on what resonates with your membership and the issues facing your region. These are our guiding principles. I'll highlight just a few of them. As I mentioned earlier, we are abolitionist in our approach, advocating for the abolition of the institution of war itself. We are both pro-peace and anti-war, meaning that as we work to dismantle the war machine, we also tell the story of a world beyond war and work to create a culture of peace. We are global in our approach, and that's been important to us from day one. We know that one country alone cannot abolish war. We need to work as a united global movement. We are nonpartisan, which is very important to us, to work across the aisle and bring people together from all backgrounds to unite around the issue of war abolition. And we are intersectional in our approach, connecting the dots between war and other issues and building bridges with many groups beyond the anti-war movement. And we're a movement builder, providing many educational resources and technical tools to organizations around the world. One framework for looking at World Beyond War's work is through the myths, the whys, and the hows. We debunk the myths that war is inevitable, necessary, beneficial, or just. We lay out the 7 whys, the 7 reasons to end war, which really delves into those intersectional impacts of war. And then we talk about the how, the AGSS, the Alternative Global Security System. How can we get to a world beyond war? Through the strategies of demilitarizing security, managing conflict non-violently, and creating a culture of peace. And we have fact sheets, articles, videos, and much more on all 3 of these aspects of this framework. We have many, many resources at World Beyond War, and I've talked about many of them already. I'll also highlight a few others. Our Peace Almanac, it's a daily calendar that highlights important moments in the peace movement and works to tell a new story instead of celebrating militaristic holidays. Our Mapping Militarism project is an important resource that maps out where troops are stationed, where bases are located, and much more around the world. We provide many organizing and technical resources to chapters and affiliates, including organizing training, social media assistance, graphic design, website design, webinar hosting, and much more. So a chapter works to advance World Beyond War's mission. It works locally and globally. It can focus on any of those pillars that we talked about: education, action, media work. A chapter collects signatures for the Declaration of Peace, and organizes a minimum of 4 events per year. And again, as I've emphasized, each chapter has a localized focus depending on the local context and what resonates with your members, all with an eye towards the larger goal of war abolition. The chapter works closely with the staff that provides resources and training to the chapter. We create a web page for each chapter, and we can also help with a variety of technical organizing tools like setting up an email list, hosting online petitions, hosting surveys, creating newsletters, creating fundraising pages, and all of those tools to support your work. We publicize your events and help to recruit volunteers. And one of the major benefits is being part of the global network where we can connect you with people around the world who are working on similar issues. So you can share strategies and tactics, what's working, what's not working, and build that camaraderie. As part of that, we have at least 4 meetings per year, which are for all of the chapter coordinators around the world to connect with each other. And we help to share your news with a wider global audience through our email list, website, and social media to help shine a light on local issues that might not get global attention. Here are some common questions. We've reviewed a few of them already. The first, as we've talked about, we are abolitionist in our approach, and so we don't support any types of violence, and we never take any side in a war. The second is about fundraising. Chapters are not expected to fundraise for World Beyond War. It's certainly available for chapters that have capacity to fundraise, but it's not a requirement. The third, as I mentioned, chapters are nonpartisan. World Beyond War Global is nonpartisan, so neither World Beyond War or any of its local chapters can endorse a political candidate for office or take sides with any political party. And the last question about the legal structure of a chapter. That also depends. Many chapters are unincorporated groups of volunteers, but we also do have chapters that are incorporated entities. So there's a range of options, and we can work with you depending on your context to help you with those structures and figure out what works best. So that's a brief presentation, a brief introduction to what World Beyond War is, what a chapter is, and we look forward to working with you. We hope this inspires you to start a chapter in your community. You can find us on all the major social media platforms at World Beyond War, and our website is simply WorldBeyondWar.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Greta. That was awesome. So today we have speakers from 2 chapters. We have Helen Peacock from Ontario, Canada, Fatoumata Djire from Mali, and Bari from the Ireland and Italy chapters was not able to make it today. He apologizes. So our first speaker today is Helen Peacock. She is the founder of Pivot to Peace, a local peace group in Ontario, Canada, which is part of the Canada-wide Peace and Justice Network. She is a positive peace ambassador for the Institute of Economics and Peace and a chapter coordinator for World Beyond War. She is a public speaker who has presented on the topic of world peace to groups around the world, including Russia, China, India, Australia, Europe, and North America. So take it away, Helen.
Thank you, Vanessa. Let me just start by saying how wonderful it is to be with a group of people who are aligned or attracted to the mission of World Beyond War, and how important I think it is. Now I'm only seeing me. Is that anyway, how important I think
I spotlighted you.
For us to be doing this work. My journey with World Beyond War started in 2018 when I went to a World Beyond War conference in Toronto. Now, I'd had a corporate career. You can imagine there weren't a lot of peace activists, but I'd always been interested in peace, and I'd been on the periphery of the movement for years. But after I went to that conference, I was so blown away by the energy and the commitment and the inspiration of the people there. I just knew that I wanted to get more involved. I also was aware of how much I didn't know and the degree to which my culture had inculcated me with ideas about war that simply aren't true. So what we did was we kind of educated ourselves, my husband and I, and in particular, we were struck by a a video on a debate on whether war could be justified. And it was a YouTube video, and it just blew us away. And we thought we wanted to start a chapter, but I didn't know whether there would be energy for it locally. So we just had a series of meetings in our basements and we invited our friends over to look at the video, and we had discussions afterward. And after about 6 or 8 of these meetings, we had a group of about 20 people who were interested in helping me. So then I called Greta. And told her that we wanted to form a chapter. And what I would recommend to you is call Greta first. I didn't know that that was an option, but then I called Greta and we started our chapter. And I'd like to tell you that we had a really clear plan of what we wanted to do and a vision of what the impact we were going to make. But that wouldn't be true. We knew what we would do first, and we put on an event for International Peace Day on September 21st, and we invited our entire community, and we did it at the Legion. And that was really quite successful, and that got us launched. Other activities that we've done locally have included, we put on an alternative Remembrance Day ceremony. I think that's Memorial Day in the States. And for ours, one of our members created a beautiful wreath with white poppies to symbolize peace, which is what it's supposed to be about. And we had an alternative ceremony handing out these white poppies to our community. And that was really good. And we also participated in some of the actions of the Canada-wide Peace and Justice Network, which was created through the work of World Beyond War. Without their facilitation, I'm not sure that we would have had it. And at some point along the way, we split into 2 groups. And I know Frank and Jillian are here right now. I told them they should be talking with me. They continued to do the work that we were doing locally. I don't think a day goes by that Jillian isn't writing a letter to the paper or a politician or whatever has hit her in the moment. And they have been doing regular actions outside our MP's office, and even if they have a small group of people with them, they still feel powerful because they know that at the same time, right across our country, Canada, there are other groups, other affiliates who are taking the same action, protesting the fighter jet purchases in Canada, protesting the shipment of weapons to Israel, and these kinds of things. In the meantime, I got involved with Rotary, which is the world's 2nd largest humanitarian organization and has like 1.4 million people around the world and thousands of chapters, 45,000 Rotary clubs around the world. And they were founded on a mission of peace. But the way they had been implementing the mission was peace in the sense of creating sustainable, positive peace communities, peace in the communities, clean drinking water, access to health, that kind of thing. In Rotary circles, you would hear people say, there's nothing we can do about war, but we can do this or we can do that will help create peace. And in fact, as we know, there's a lot we can be doing about war. And so I wanted to I thought that would be enormously impactful if we could get the Rotarians to expand their mission of what they could do to include the learning and the insights from World Beyond War and what we can actually do to end war. So I started by running a grassroots movement, organizing a grassroots movement in Rotary to support the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And I did that for 2 years, and we built grassroots support. We increased it by 50%, so we had an impact. But I burned out, and that happens sometimes. And I sort of regrouped, and I had this idea that maybe if we focused on education and finding a way to give Rotarians the aha experience that I had through my work with World Beyond War, we could help make that shift in focus happen. And so again, with the help of Jillian and Frank, who I know are on this call, we arranged with World Beyond War to take their Abolish War 101 course, which is one of their original courses that they offered. And Jillian and Frank, who are both writers, helped me edit it at the beginning, and they were pretty ruthless. And then I went away with the course and created something that was very light and conversational and engaging, and just asked 4 questions. And you can see the 4 questions on my screensaver. Can war be ended? What do you think? Is a just war possible? What do you think? what does war cost us and what can we do? And you can take this online training in 2 hours, in less than 2 hours, or you could spend way longer with it and go deeper and deeper. And of course, it's based on the incredible research of World Beyond War and incorporates some of the other learnings that we had from our grassroots movement to support a world free of nuclear weapons. So I'm now the head of the organizing committee within Rotary for this effort, a positive peace activator within Rotary for this effort, and I'm on the board of the Rotary Action Group for Peace, and it all came out of World Beyond War. So if you are interested in making use of this tool, it's on the World Beyond War website, and it's available for everyone. And I'd like to finish with a quick story. I guess it was 2019. Dave and I, my husband and I, went to a World Beyond War conference in Ireland. And Greta was there, and she asked me to say a few words about our chapter, so I did. And then on the break, a man came up to speak to me, and he was one of the featured speakers. He was an expert on the weaponization of space. And he told me how much he'd enjoyed my little presentation, and I thanked him. And then he said, "But you're really new to the peace movement, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, I've been involved peripherally for years, but yeah, to the extent that I'm involved now, yes, I am new. Why are you asking me that?" And he said, "Oh, you have way too much enthusiasm. I knew you must be new." So I tell you this story because here I am now, 6 years later. I want to tell that man and all of you that I still have the same level of enthusiasm and hope and belief that we can make a difference in the world, that we can see the shift that we want to happen. And I can't think of a more important way in which we could be investing our time. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Helen. That was wonderful. And World Beyond War is so happy to have you as a chapter coordinator.
And Jillian and Frank.
So next we have Fatoumata Djire. She is the coordinator of the Mali chapter. Her dedication to peace was sparked by her experiences witnessing the atrocities during the 2012 armed conflict in Mali. After hearing stories of those affected by the conflict, including those who were killed, displaced, or injured, she had to reevaluate her role and commitment to peace in her country. So she studied conflict resolution at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, where she earned a master's degree in gender, peace, and security in 2016. Fatoumata believes that education is a powerful tool for creating a more just and peaceful society in today's world. She advocates for working with individuals and organizations to nurture every seed of peace, which will benefit not only the current generation, but also future ones. Take it away, Fatoumata.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I think that becoming a chapter coordinator is really committing yourself to work for peace. I would like to compare my experience before and after joining World Beyond War as a chapter coordinator. Before I became a chapter coordinator, I was someone who really was committed, who has dreams, aspiration, wanted to make change, And because my country have been through war for decades, up to now with no resolutions. And I wanted to use my unique skills and knowledge to solve problems. But I didn't know how, when, and with whom, because I really kind of isolated. So I thought that I needed to start big, that like be in a more structured organizations or access to resources, recruited volunteers, a lot of people so that we can work. So I was waiting for so long, I was kind of stuck because of my mindset. I tried to reach out to some professionals, hoping that they would help me achieve my goal because I wanted to really make change, but I didn't know how. These people were unwilling to help for many reasons. And I continued educating myself, taking courses on peace building, and hoping that maybe I can make change one day. So when I joined World Beyond War because I knew about World Beyond War, and when I was taking a course on UICP reconciliation, I met the former chapter coordinator of Senegal, and she came to me and asked whether I would be interested in opening a chapter in Mali. I said, okay, I'm gonna try it. So I navigated the website, and really I was inspired by all of these resources, trainings, So I completely, it was really a complete different. I came to know that we don't need to start big if we want to take change, to take action for peace. I was just inspired when I saw activists that speaking out against the genocide and ongoing in Gaza, uh, like writing letters, posting anti-war online, and petitionings, and many more. So I said just yes, and this is what I wanted to do. So I just start from that time. I started taking many online courses. I really get required support from Greta. And I went through the one-on-one trainings. We have interactions with others, activist group. I was exposed to new concept of war, peace, like myth of war, that war is not normal, war is not natural. I was just, this even was the first time to be exposed or to absorb this kind of resources and this kind of ideas, because I was taught that that even though I had a mastery, the school, the university I had my master degree was supportive to war. We'd never been taught that we could abolish war or something like that. It was a military school combining with peace. But since I completed this, I became another person. I hate war. I changed my mindset, and I'm always debating against war. Um, So from that, I started when I was ready, and I had more confidence in myself. Before I was really hesitant to take action, but when I completed everything and have the necessary support from World Beyond War team, I was definitely confident in myself, and that was the first action to take for peace. We organized the first Move for Peace, a march, like we organized it with thousands of peace builders, young people in Mali, where we share stories, discuss challenges the world is facing, and how we can work together to make difference. And after that, we also initiated the closure of military bases in Africa because we believe that these bases are a threat to us. They don't make us safe. Rather, they create more war, violence. Is a kind of new colonial practices that we need to abolish. So we are initiating this campaign, and also our latest wonderful this project is based on education and action. Like, this is a project targeting young people at the university. We're gonna train them first in peace, and then we have build their capacities to take actions, and also organize like dialogues, use tools, nonviolent tools like dialogue, negotiation to solve conflicts. This is my experience. I'll be willing to answer questions in any Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatoumata. That was wonderful. Thank you for your dedication. All right. So now we will move on to the Q&A.
Oh, I see Helen put up a hand. Yeah, go ahead,
did
Helen.
you? Okay.
I get
Thank
to
you.
ask questions too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
No, I think it's really something that I've really become aware of is the difference between those of us who are in the global north and those of us who are actually experiencing conflict and violence in our countries. And I mean, there's been a fair amount of that for Fatu in West Africa. And to be sensitive to the fact that I feel like in the global north, we're running this almost like it's as if we had a drug cartel and we're shipping these drugs all over the world. And then we're saying, oh, isn't it too bad they have a drug problem? We don't. Because we are, if we colored the world red that is experiencing violence, and we colored the world blue that is manufacturing weapons, there would be almost no overlap. We are sending these weapons over there and not recognizing the role that it's playing in the conflicts over there. So I just wanted to say that we have a responsibility too for what's really going on. It's not just over there. And then the other comment I wanted to make, if you could allow me to, is I wanted to tell you that another thing that we did in our chapter was protest CANSEC, and that's the largest trade show for the military in North America. And delegations come from around the world to Canada, to our capital, Ottawa. And we think of ourselves as such a peaceful country. And they're coming to buy armaments and tanks and machine guns. And and it's all being facilitated by the Canadian government. So it's bad enough that we are participating in the international arms trade, but we're also facilitating it. And I just wanted to say that all of you who are Canadians on this call, and I know there are a few of you, we've been doing this for 2 years now, going to Ottawa to protest. And it sounds odd to say this, but the experience has been exhilarating, honestly, because we are actually looking at the war machine. These are the people who are running the war machine, and any dissonance that we can be creating for them. And Dave and I, we infiltrate. We go to the hotel where they're staying and drink coffee in the lobby, and they come down and say, what are the protesters doing today? And we go, hi, and talk to them. And any dissonance that we can create is huge. And we've been very successful in raising awareness among Canadians. They don't even know. They don't even know that this is going on right under their nose. And they're horrified. And as soon as we can get enough Canadians aware, I think we can end this. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, absolutely, Helen. And I think, your first point about where are the weapons coming from, where are the wars located, to me, that just emphasizes the importance of working globally. And that's what we're trying to do at World Beyond War, is to connect the dots and build solidarity.
Yeah, thank you, Helen.
All right, well, I think we can go to the Q&A portion. We're a little bit ahead of schedule because Bari couldn't join us, so we may end early, but we'll see how many questions we have. So please use the chat box to put your questions and comments. We're not going to use raised hands today, so just put those in the chat box and we'll read them off, and you can direct your questions to any of us and ask about our work, any questions you might have for the chapter coordinators about their personal experience, or any broader questions you might have about World Beyond War's mission, our work, logistics and administrative questions, whatever you've got. This is your time to ask those questions, and we're here for you to help support you start a chapter. So, and I see a few questions have come in already, and I've tried to answer some of those in the chat. So Rivera Sun, who is a World Beyond War Advisory Board member, hello Rivera, says, how and where have you recruited people into your chapter? So maybe Helen and then Fatu could answer that to talk about your experiences with recruiting members.
I would say that at the beginning, we had this rush of enthusiasm. We had 20 people who wanted to be part of the chapter. We had an organizing committee of 5, and we had another 110 people who came to our first event. So we were very encouraged, and they all signed the World Beyond War Peace Pledge. I would also say that there were a number of years where we went downtown and walked up and down the sort of main street. I live in a small town 2 hours north of Toronto, and asked people to sign the World Beyond War Peace Pledge. And that led to really interesting conversations, because I feel like part of my mission personally is to try and expand the number of people who are engaged with the peace movement, and that's done conversation by conversation. Frank and Gillian have continued doing protests outside our MP's office on a regular basis. They have been measuring the honks that they get from the cars that go by, and they have noticed, they've been doing this for 3 years now, I think, that the positive honks and the thumbs up have been increasing enormously. And at the beginning, trust me, it wasn't like that. We live in a very conservative riding, and we're not far from a military base. So there's been a bit of a shift locally. We've also gotten a lot of local coverage. Again, I think Gillian has bonded with one of our local reporters. And so we've had excellent coverage of some of our events and some of our activities. And Frank and Gillian, do you want to add anything there?
Oh, Frank and Gillian, if you want to say something, just put up your hand and I'll be able to identify you. And there was a question from Gail about the scope of your chapter. I don't know if you could answer that, Helen. It's in Collinwood / South Georgian Bay. Sort of, how do you define the territory of the chapter?
We call ourselves the South Georgian Bay chapter of World Beyond War, and we're located right on Georgian Bay in Collingwood. But we go to Toronto.
Yes. Yes. And that just to say, and I see Frank and Gillian, I'll call on you in a second, but yeah, just to respond to that's part of the benefit of being part of the World Beyond War network is that, yeah, you're based in one location, but as you said, you're going to Toronto, you're going to Ottawa, you're collaborating with other chapters across the country and around the world.
And I can't overemphasize how phenomenal it's been to have this Canada-wide Peace and Justice Network facilitated by World Beyond War, by Greta and now Rachel, because we're not alone. And even if we are a small group in front of our MP's office, we're not alone. And when they put the collage together of these small groups across the country and then send it to Ottawa, it's pretty impactful. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Frank and Gillian, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Okay, I just want to say I hope you can all tell why when we went to this person we'd never met before and listened to her in the basement that we were hooked. Helen gave an excellent presentation, and we're really thrilled to be part of her group. And yes, we're small, but Frank and I have made a commitment to doing these little local actions on the same day that say they're global or across Canada, Canada-wide. And, you think nothing's happening, but every so often you meet someone, or one time we had a woman came up and gave us a little bouquet of flowers and stuff like that. Really gratifying. So I want to say to all of you, you'll think nothing's happening, but more is happening than you think.
Thank you so much. So I see a bunch of other questions are coming in, but I want to turn to Fatu first to answer that initial question about how did your chapter approach recruitment? How did you recruit members?
Okay. It's when I completed the 1120, I try to learn from that how we can start recruiting people. I try to use those tips, and it was really amazing. So I start from my personal contacts. I reach out to some people that explain them the vision of World Beyond War, the work, the impact. So some of them who are willing to really join. And then I contacted some people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a powerful tool to make your action visible, to call for volunteers. I recruited some of them. At the beginning, we were around 30 people who signed the peace declaration. But going forward, some of them were disengaged, but we are we have about 10 people who are active volunteers. I am really more positive because I think that volunteers recruitment is an ongoing process. It never ends, you know. And it's like try if you are driving a cab driver, like you are driving your car, so you know your final destination. You would pick some of the people you will drop there before getting your final destination. And doesn't mean you need to stop there. You need to continue until your final destination. Even if some people may join it for personal reason or maybe for money or something like that, but you should remain really focused on your final destinations and never stop recruiting volunteers. Yes, that's basically, but I'm still doing it. I'm still recruiting it. Everyone is welcome to World Beyond War.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I think you really make a good point, Fatu, which is that people do join for different reasons, and that's okay. And the Organizing 101 course talks about that some people might join for the experience that they can put on their resume. Some people might join for the skill building or the trainings that the chapter offers. Some people might join because they just want to be part of a group and meet friends. Some people might join because they're personally impacted by war. So there's all these different reasons, and that's totally okay to bring people together. And as we think about recruitment tactics, we can think about kind of how we can meet those different needs to bring people into the chapter. So there's another question here about coalition building and working with other peace groups. We certainly don't want to reinvent the wheel. There are many, many existing anti-war groups. And I think that World Beyond War has often played a role of being a networker. You know, Helen referenced the Canada-wide Peace and Justice Network that we've helped to facilitate. And we've often been able to be what we call kind of a movement builder and providing our resources and our training and that kind of support to other groups. So yeah, I guess I would like to hear from both of you about your experience of working with other groups and how you've been able to build coalitions and you know, not kind of make groups feel like we're duplicating work, but instead collaborating.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
I think collaboration is absolutely critical. And Fatou referenced a Peace Education to Action program, and this is a collaboration between Rotary and World Beyond War, in which 10 young people from 10 different countries around the world form a team and are given peace education a la World Beyond War. They take a course in peace education, and then they shift over to do an action locally in their own country. And the beauty of this is they're doing it together. And so when Canada participated in this, we had 10 young Canadians who were rubbing shoulders with people in Uganda and people in Venezuela, young people from all around the world. And it was really inspiring for them. And then we're shifting over to actually do an action in their own countries. And that's an example of a collaboration. World Beyond War had the education and the training, and Rotary had the network. So Rotary was able to connect with these young people all around the world, and also in some cases pay for them. As well, I think the collaboration that we have going now with the Ending War 101 program is pretty amazing. It's like we're slipping in under the radar screen of a culture that doesn't think it can do anything about war, and kind of waking them up to the fact that maybe we can. And that's another wonderful collaboration through the Rotary Action Group for Peace umbrella organization within Rotary and World Beyond War. And I don't know. I mean, recently I got involved with the Founding Mothers movement, and I'm interested in what they're doing. They're trying to invite every peace group, every environmental group, every spiritual group, and every to become part of this worldwide collaboration. And they have two goals: to end war, which of course we're completely aligned with, and and women's rights, which they go hand in hand, don't they? So another example of a collaboration. I can't think of any more offhand, Jillian and Frank, from our point of view.
In terms of collaborating, it's been very satisfying. We've formed relationships with our local Green Party, Simcoe County for Palestine, the local Collingwood Action Network and environmental group. And that has happened because of being out on the street, and they come and join us and we let them know what we're up to. And it's great to be part of this larger World Beyond War network and also the Canada-wide Peace and Justice Network. Yeah.
Thank you. And we have a bunch of other questions coming in. I think we will use the full hour here. But Fatu, I'd love to go to you next if you wanted to answer that question about how your chapter collaborates with other organizations, builds coalitions, and tries to make groups feel like we're collaborating, not duplicating work.
Okay. My chapter is really new because we became association just last year in Mali. But we start collaborating with a department in charge of human rights and peace education at the University of Law, because university the context is a very, very sensitive. We don't know actors, they don't know us, and we don't want to do harm to what we want to do. We have to be very, very strategic. We couldn't reach out to students directly. We needed to go to the peace department first to discuss how we're gonna do it. And we did that. They are very interested in our peace project. They are willing to help, so they are going to support us. Like, they have already their office there. They are volunteer. They know more about students because the head of this department is a law professor at university, and is very, very enthusiastic about the project, and is really wanna make change, but he didn't know how. So we've been there. We're gonna support him. We're going to join our effort to see how we can really educate those students about peace, because there is no peace education at university, and violence has been going on for decades. Since the early independence of the country, students have been involved in cases of violence. Even recently, some of them were, there was a student who was killed because of this violence. Some students were even in prison because of that. So we really want to change this and transform young people at university to really peace builders at university and their community. We want to change this narrative, but it can only work through collaboration. Peace movement cannot achieve their goal in isolations. We need to join other group, other organizations to make change.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Okay, I want to call on Deborah, who had a question but was unable to type it in the chat. And Deborah actually I recently met Deborah at our World Beyond War book club, and we actually have many chapters that come out of people who attend the World Beyond War monthly book club and get inspired. So it's great to see you, Deborah, and you're welcome to unmute now. Are you there, Deborah? Let's see. Oh, you're still muted. You should see a button asking you to unmute.
Sorry, all.
There you go.
I'm on an iPad that's a little bit testy, sort of like I am, I guess. All the questions have been really good and all the answers have. So I had a hard time trying to think of how to phrase the question and listen at the same time. One of the things I just want to add on to what Helen was saying is how big we are in the military spending. But I also appreciate Greta, the last course we took. And I'm just wondering, we stand in front of our MP's office. My MP was willing to meet with me. He didn't even know a CanSec had happened, even though he's a twice elected parliament member. But I think we need to go a lot bigger than that. It's not only that we have a huge military industrial complex, it's why that military industrial complex exists. It's to keep capitalism and the Western world economic system going. So I really appreciated the last course we took that focused on concentrated capital. And I just also wanted to recommend this really good book, Invisible Doctrine, The Secret History of Neoliberalism. It's actually co-written by an author from Britain and a filmmaker in the US, George Monbiot. But I am a member already of 3 other peace groups. I think World Beyond War does have the most to offer. I'm just wondering, are we doing something wrong by having so many different groups? Does anybody have a good answer for why don't we coalesce more often or do something that we're not all, like one of my groups is out picketing right now on the No to NATO week, and I had to give up that to stay for this. And so I just don't know if the piecemeal small groups are big enough for what we need. We need to going after our politicians that are part of an economic system right now that we don't have democracy because big money interests and peace. We don't go to war for security and defense. We go to war to secure markets for capitalism. So anyway, sorry to go on, but that's my question.
Yeah. Well, I think just quickly to your first point about, war profiteering, I think that aligns very well with our divestment campaign at World Beyond War, which is one of our core focus areas. And we can send the link, but we have a website for talking about divestment and giving different tools and resources. And the fact that divestment is so tangible, it is something that we can all do on the individual level, on the community level, your employer, your place of worship, your union, your city, your pension fund, et cetera, you can expand from there. So that's something we can all focus on. And we have many chapters that do focus on that. But to your second question, and I also want to hear Helen and Fatu on this, but I think what you're getting at just comes back to the importance of coalition building, which is something that, again, we've been able to do. I think we've had a strength in that, one, because of the amount of resources and technical support that we provide. So we've been able to sort of amplify the work of smaller grassroots groups and help bring them together and offer those resources. And, we have staff, for example, with the Canada-wide Peace and Justice Network that Helen mentioned. We have paid staff, Rachel, who can help, do those behind the scenes administrative tasks to facilitate the network. Helen and Fatu, do you want to respond to that?
I had a colleague in Rotary who did some research and gave us a list of 1,000 peace organizations or peace-related organizations in North America. It was phenomenal. And so I really agree. I do think that our efforts are fragmented, and there are ways in which we can be coming together, I think, in more impactfully. I would also say that, I have a cousin who's the founder of the Center for the Study of Living Standards in Canada. It's an economic think tank. He's a PhD in economics, and he's in Ottawa, and his think tank is relied on by our federal government for input into policy. And so he's well connected politically in our country, although he's not at all a politician. And so I was doing a presentation in Ottawa to regular I don't know what they call themselves, regular Canadians. And I asked him to come, and he said, well, okay. And he came because it was me. And he started out like this, and he ended up really engaged. And we had lots of discussion afterwards. And he said, but you know what? It's not going to make a difference, because you're not going to reach the people who are making the decisions. You have to be able to reach the people who are making the decisions. And so then I asked him to go look at the website of the Institute of Economics and Peace. Now, it's an economic think tank too, and it measures the actual level of peacefulness on our planet, country by country, covering almost 100% of the planet. And it's been doing that since 2007. And it shows, with economic data and metrics that can be completely substantiated, that the level of peacefulness on the planet has been going down steadily. And it also measures the impact, the cost of militarism, and it's been going up exponentially. And this really made a difference for my cousin. It was factual, and it was data-based, and it could be substantiated, and it could go into a policy paper that could go to someone, it really made a difference for him. Now, I knew they'd fall in love because he was a think tank and they were a think tank. So I knew that would happen, but it changed he's more of a buddy of mine now. He's more of a partner in what we're trying to do. And so I think to be impactful, we have to focus on reaching the people who are making the decisions. How can we reach the people who are making the decisions? There's another, a guy, Sam Daly Harris, and he's American, and he wrote a book, Reclaiming Our Democracy. Those of you who are from the States may have heard of him. And we actually, in our little organizing committee for Ending War 101, he came in and gave us a coaching session. It was amazing, a one-on-one coaching session with this guy, absolutely wonderful. And he was talking about how he'd crossed the United States talking to something like 7,000 high school students. And he asked them all, who is your member of Congress? And this is in the States. And only 200 of them knew out of 7,000. And he said, this is the issue. We have to reclaim our democracy. If we can speak out, we must. And we need to be speaking to the people that we are electing who are making these decisions to go down the war rabbit hole. Can I tell one more little story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dave and I, we like to escape the Canadian winter. For those of you who don't live in a freezer for 3 months a year, you maybe don't understand, and so we've been going to Argentina. And one day we got up and our street was full of babies and young families. And it went on for 6 blocks. We didn't understand what was happening. We couldn't understand what they were saying. It turned out that our little condo was around the corner from the Russian embassy to Argentina. And these were people who had escaped what they had called Putin's war, and knew that if their baby was born in Argentina, he or she would automatically get citizenship, and so would they. And so all these young families had kind of gotten out of Russia and arrived in Argentina, and they were like all these 1-year-old babies. The cohort will be enormous. And they were lining up to vote, because that was the election in Russia where Putin got in by 98% of the vote. They were lining up to vote against him. And what she said was, we can't do this in Russia. We can't speak out in Russia, but we can here. And if you can, you must. And that's just what I think is the message for all of us.
Thank you, Helen. Well, I know we are at the hour mark, but there actually have been quite a few questions coming in that I do want to make time for. So I think if it's okay, we'll stay a little bit over time, maybe 5 minutes more. And for those who have to leave, we are going to send the recording afterwards. But Fatu, I just want to make time if you have any responses to the current discussion before I move us on a different track.
I'd say Helen has been clear, so we can move on to the next question.
Okay, great. So yeah, there was a question about how do we ensure nonpartisan advocacy in opposition to war, because that is something that's really important to us, and also legally as a nonprofit in the US, we can't take sides in elections. We can't endorse or oppose candidates running for office. But beyond sort of the legal requirements, it's something that's important to us because we don't want to be partisan, and we want to be able to attract people from all different backgrounds who can come together around this idea of war abolition. And we have been successful in that. And we do have people who are part of our network from sort of all walks of life and across the political spectrum. But yeah, I guess maybe Fatu or Helen, if you want to respond of how do you maintain that balance, I guess, in your chapter of not delving into the partisanship.
I'm gonna answer. I think that what we should put in mind is that we're gonna be on peace sides. You know, we're gonna be uh where there is peace. Like if we are two candidates or opposing candidates, the first would support war and the other would support non-violence means, and we're gonna be on the side of the one we supporting. But does that mean for the we are supporting it for a personal interest or political goal, but we're gonna be there where there is peace. You know, and I think it's very clear our vision is about peace. It is not about interest or persons. You know, even I would say if Donald Trump is supporting peace and peace talk negotiations, we're gonna support Donald Trump. It's not the physical or the appearance or the political um affiliation of the candidate, but is about peace, is about nonviolence means, is about his vision. If his vision is really aligned with peace movement vision, the vision, our shared vision, the vision we want to have we have for the world, that's it, we're gonna support him. So I think this is a real uh, very easy to a very easy position to take.
Yeah, and just to say on that point, yeah, I think you are right. In our experience, you know, we have been able to work with different allies who, yeah, we might not agree with on 1,000 things, but maybe they do take a stance on, you know, an anti-war stance on a particular issue, and we can find a point of collaboration. But I think it is a very fine line that we walk, and we have to be very careful with that messaging where we're not saying we endorse this person, or, you know, we're not saying we support a political candidate, we're not saying we support a political party, but in very specific and targeted ways, we might be able to collaborate with them on a certain policy that is anti-war. And also just to distinguish the difference between a candidate running for office and a candidate who's already elected. So the real issue for us comes when the candidates are running for office, where we don't want to get involved in the election process. But afterwards, once they're elected, that's when we can start to try to work with them and push our policies for peace. All right, Helen, do you have any response?
I think there's a very important distinction between being political and being partisan. And we want to be nonpartisan, but everything is political. And these are the people who are making the decisions. And so if there's any way we could augment the voice of someone who is speaking out against the industrial military complex and for peace, we want to augment it. And if there's any way we can interrupt the rhetoric of someone who is going down that rabbit hole, then we want to interrupt it. And I feel very strongly about that.
Right. There was a question about, can World Beyond War help with sort of research needs, like researching what countries have weapons, how much they cost, what's your country's military budget, etc. And I would just say to that, yes, to some extent. We do original research, which you can find on our website. We may have the answers to your questions already, or if we don't have it, we work with so many groups around the world. We have a lot of connections, so we can probably connect you with a group that knows, or, you know, provide you with links and resources. And that is a large part of my job too, is a lot of times chapters are reaching out to me and saying, you know, we want to do an event about war and the environment. What resources do you have on that topic? Or we want to do an event on XYZ, and I'm able to sort of direct people to, you know, either we have this in-house or we can find an external organization that can provide that resource. So yeah, that's my response to that. I think we can move on. Oh, Helen, do you want to say something?
Greta, help me out here. I don't have it on my notes, but I've taken notes from a World Beyond War event in the last week based on the People's Tribunal
Oh, yes, the Merchants of Death War Crimes Tribunal.
The
Yeah.
Merchants of Death War Crime. Oh my God, there was a speaker there, Rania Masri, who just had me completely. Anyway, they've done a tremendous amount of work on this, haven't they? And they have all kinds of information related to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Helen. And we can, there's a lot of links being shared in the chat. We can compile all this into the follow-up email. But I've just put the link for the Merchants of Death in the chat there. And there's a recording of that press conference that you're referring to.
Thank you.
Okay, so I want to get to what I think is the final question, which is about working with youth, which I know both of you have already kind of responded to that a little bit here and there. But if either of you want to add about how your chapters might have engaged youth.
I'm gonna jump in. I think that from my side, we couldn't reach out directly young people because there are many, many issues. We couldn't engage them directly. We need to collaborate with the institutions or the department in charge of peace and human rights education there, and they know how the strategies we can engage them effectively because young people there are a lot of issues to deal with these aspects. Some of them may be reluctant, they would be very skeptical about it. We don't know how we can engage them the more appropriate way, and there are a lot of cultural issues related to that. We need to be very strategic about it.
Thank you. And Helen, any final comments on that?
I think that I really noticed, for example, in the last CanSec protest that we did in Ottawa, that we had 100 young people join us. They were so passionate, and they were so, they were pouring red paint on the road and lying in it to symbolize what was happening and stopping the cars. And they were just so passionate. And so I think we have a natural alliance with the university students. I would also point out that, Rotary has Rotary Peace Scholars around the world. They fund scholarships every year, and they go to one of 7 peace centers where they're taught about conflict resolution and mediation, and nobody mentions the war machine. Some of these peace centers act like we don't even have nuclear weapons on the planet. So they're not being taught, they're not turning around and looking at the war system the way World Beyond War is teaching us. And we've had some of them take our Ending War 101 course and go, I didn't know that. And these are, people who've been studying this for years at the university level. So I think we have our work cut out for us education-wise for the young people. And there's I was really inspired by the passion of the young people, if we can connect with them, and then I look at my own kids, and they have kids, they have full-time jobs, they have mortgages, they care. They've taken the Ending War 101 course. They care, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just add on that, the Madison, Wisconsin chapter in the US is doing a really interesting collaboration with universities there. We have 2 university chapters where they're paying the students, which is something that I feel strongly about, and they've hired these student interns. They've done all the fundraising themselves to raise the money, and it's not as much money as one would think. The money goes a long way. These are part-time positions for the students during the semester. And it's been really impactful. So for anyone who's interested in that, we have the Madison, Wisconsin chapter as a model, and I know that they're happy to talk to anyone who wants to try to replicate that model.
We got to get them before they have kids.
All right. Well, I know we've gone a little bit over time, but thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, Fatu, Helen, thank you for your presentations. Thank you, everyone who has spent your Saturday with us. We will send out the recording and the links and resources, and please don't hesitate to contact us, and we'll be in touch with you. We hope to work with you to start a chapter in your area. And I'll pass it. Well, I see Helen, you want to say, I'll say Helen and then Vanessa for a final word.
Oh, I wasn't raising my hand.
Oh, you weren't raising your hand? Okay.
But what I'll say is, if you feel even just a twinge of interest, call Greta.
Thank you. Fatu, did you have any final words?
Really, just to thank that.
I'm really grateful to World Beyond War. I think that they're an amazing organization, really amazing. And the more that you get involved, the more you're going to be inspired.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you so much, Fatoumata. And thank you all. Thank you, Greta. I am so grateful to all of you for coming today. For more information about being a chapter coordinator for World Beyond War, please visit our chapter coordinator page. And you are always welcome to email Greta at worldbeyondwar.org. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Greta. Thank you, Fatu.
Okay, thank you
everyone.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Frank and
Bye-bye.
Julie.